Good morning. Welcome to the annual general meeting of the Semiahmoo Residents Association. I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and I'd like to thank you all for your participation and exchange over the last few weeks. As you see, the agenda is in front of you, and the first thing on the agenda is a call to order. But before I do that, I would like to thank the directors and introduce them to each of you. So I am Alec Berkman. I am currently, unfortunately, misfortunately, the president of the association. I am joined by Michael Hayden, who's the vice president and legal liaison. Mike has been a valuable board member over the last few years, and we turn to him for a lot of legal questions. Coincidentally, Carol Gash is also a former attorney. She is our secretary and as the chairman of our Safety and Security Committee. And much thanks to Carol for all that she's done to keep us organized and keep the documents in order. We were joined just a couple of months ago by Kurt Hagman, who is filling in the treasurer's term. I believe Kurt has agreed to serve through the end of this year. That term does run on to the end of next year, and so we may have to make an appointment if we can't convince Kurt, who's doing a great job, to stay. Patricia Oliveros is our assistant secretary, was instrumental in helping us gather various pieces of the building project. Her background is in the construction and design industry, and we really appreciate that. Paul Greeno is, he is our Robert's Rules of Order and advisor on process, and enjoyed working with Paul over the last year. Bill McNally joined us last year as well. Bill has been monitoring everything that's going along the Semiahmoo Parkway, and I think you may have noticed that some letters have gone back and forth to the city asking them to give us more notice when they're going to tear up our streets and invade our neighborhoods. And I hope to get some response on that. Nicole Newton is the general manager at the Semiahmoo Resort, Golf and Spa, and she has the seat that was originally designated by the declarant, and that is a permanent seat. She sits in it for as long as she would like to. And then we come to Jennifer Plumbon. Jennifer is our environmental specialist and runs the environmental committee, is also a contributor and editor for the Community Courier newsletter. Jennifer brings an interesting perspective to the board because she is always looking at the neighborhoods in terms of habitat and growth and possible toxicities. So it's important to have that kind of input. And then I would like to thank particularly David Eulis, who has been running arm in arm with me for the last year and has put in virtually thousands of hours of work. He heads the communications committee and the maintenance committee, and you've probably seen him crawling hills out in the community. I appreciate all your work, Dave. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to turn to Ashley for a certificate of a quorum. Do we have ballots representing a quorum?
Can everyone hear me okay?
Can you hear Ashley?
Okay, great, thank you. So we're actually going to, we're actually going to direct this to Debbie Smith, who is going to do the certificate of quorum, proof of notice of annual general meeting, and review protocol for today's meeting. Debbie?
Thank you, Ashley. Again, I'm Debbie Smith, your executive director, and the quorum, those votes received established a 69% quorum. Proof of notice, a notice of the annual meeting addressed to all members at the address on record at the Association Administrative Office was mailed by the printer on September 24th, 2020. SRA is in possession of a signed certificate from the printer as proof of this event. And we can also show that here is the voter pamphlet that went out. As far as the protocol, we wanted you to be aware that the meeting is being recorded for the sake of the minutes. We will start with a number of short presentations reporting to you on 2020 and looking forward to 2021. After that, we will open the floor for questions. So please hold your questions until that time. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Debbie. We're going to move on to the President's report. That will be conducted by Alec Berkman.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd like to make a few comments about what we have accomplished and are going to accomplish over the next few months. Primarily on the backs of the consultants. I know some of you are opposed to consultancy, but these people are professionals and they have met every single target put in front of them. So I'm extending thanks to them. I think they've already made us better. If we go through the list just briefly, we have already formed an interim staff partnership program, and that runs position by position. We have somebody working with everybody in the staff. We've developed a standardized meeting procedure and notice process. That will continue to improve. We've installed comprehensive training for directors and committee chairs. That gets implemented through December through January. We've developed committee charters for standing committees. Our documents did not have authorization for the committees that we have, so we will remedy that. We've instituted a consistent election process. It is in the process of documentation and will be implemented in the first quarter of 2021. And I would mention on a side note here that we will be scheduling more meetings for more communication with the membership. Those may take the form of town halls or special meetings or both. We've established a chartered financial committee. Interestingly, this should be one of our primary committees, and we do not have any documentation for a standing financial committee. So that's being done immediately. We have already streamlined standards for residential construction through the ASC. We've established an accountable construction process that runs through the completion of a housing start. The first meeting on that process took place, or will take place, on Monday. We've developed a comprehensive report on responsibilities that will show us all of the neighborhood homeowners associations. That gets implemented based on the information that Jacob Lee has been working on over the last couple of months. So next month we'll be formally into that. We have formalized a regular communication process between the SRA and the NHOAs, which will be implemented with the assumption of seats by the new board in January, and we intend to have regular meetings with those NHOAs that are organized, and we will try to get additional information to those NHOAs as to their own liability protection, and a white paper will be produced for all 27 neighborhood homeowners associations. We've raised the bar on skills, knowledge, and abilities for all staff. I think they feel that already. I can see a difference in the atmosphere when I'm at the office. We've established a formal training program, a mentoring program, and a certification program for the executive director. That course is formally referred to as the CIAM 100 course. We've also implemented a maintenance staff protection and safety program. You'll see from some of the presentation that follows that that is already in process. We're now doing weekly SRA meetings. The entire staff meets to go over what's on the plate for the week and how they did in the last week. We've also begun training of staff to implement a board orientation process that will get finished up through November and December as the new board members take their observation seats for those 2 months and then start their real work in January. We have insisted on monthly reports from the consulting team to the board via the president, that would be me. That is already in place, and I've already seen the draft reports, and they have, as I said, hit each of the goals that were outlined for this particular month. We've engaged an HOA specialty attorney, Richard Davis of Schmelik, Sitkin and Davis is that attorney. And I expect he will be at our meeting next year if we have an in-person meeting, which I'm really looking forward to. I'd like to get back to the cookies, the double cookies next year because we had none this year. Standardized service provider contracts have been drafted so that people that provide service to us all understand how they work through a contract with us. We've retained an expert human resource independent contractor. She's already in place and has started to reform our personnel records and files and update our processes to be current. In some cases, we were out of sync with the law. In other cases, we just didn't have well-documented files, so that is in process. We've established HR policies consistent with the law. I think that goes without saying. It's connected to the last point. We've implemented a comprehensive employee handbook. That's in process, and it's just about finished. We have also begun to segregate duties so people aren't overlapping and doing each other's job. People will have job definitions and understand how they report, what they report, and what their expectations are. We've implemented a workplace safety training program for all employees. Again, I'll reference that later, or someone will for you. We are searching currently for an HOA banking partner, and we hope to have that decision made by December. We're redefining all the job descriptions, and we are soliciting proposals for not only the HOA banking, but the way that we will designate what people are, pardon me?
Authority.
How they report and what their authorities are. The board has approved an internal credit card policy that is adopted. It should say credit card policy. That has been adopted. We're going to stop using individuals' credit cards and have company credit cards with pre-designated limits on them. The board has already approved an internal banking reconciliation process that includes a stand-up financial committee. And so those members will participate in monitoring that process. We've reviewed and updated our checks and cash handling policies. That's already in process. We've updated our collections process and how we communicate with the people from whom we have to collect, and that's in process already as well. We've moved the bookkeeping function to free up the executive director's management time. That's begun already. We have an interim accounting manager in place, and we will look to continue that program beyond the consulting period, which ends this next March. As you know, we implemented a $250 transfer fee policy, and we've communicated that, and we will have a special board meeting following this meeting within a period of several days to start working on the implementation of that transfer fee. We've also initiated an annual documented maintenance plan, which we'll reference later in the financial report. I want to spend a minute on the board charter that we announced, I believe, on the 12th of October. This has been a contentious period, and I think it's important to remember that we're all on the same side, and our goal is the betterment of the community and the protection of property values. So our charter is this. First, we will listen harder. We will seek better communication channels. We heard the comments of the community. However, as you have clearly pointed out, communication is a two-way street. So we are going to look directly to the membership for more listening, more involvement, and expertise on our board committees. I should note right there that we had an invitation out for people who wanted to participate in the meeting today. There were no respondents, zero. So being involved is a good way to listen. It's a good way to learn. Our second point is that we firmly believe that the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities of the staff and the board must be improved. That has not been an internally, that is board-driven, consistent practice. Board members come and go, their expertise comes and goes, and we need staff to provide the continuity that we need. That includes honoring contracts and commitments, both internally to our people and our volunteers, and externally to our suppliers, vendors, and service providers. Third, the SRA board is committed to a review of both the revenues and expenses that were presented in the budget, with an intent to deliver a balanced budget as soon as practicable. We expect membership participation, and we will facilitate that participation. Fourth, we'll strengthen the board as we move into next year. We have a standard of care and a duty of loyalty, and we intend to adhere to both of those. Fifth, we will continue to improve our communication, both coming in and going out. Sixth, we will continue as long as we are in office to do what we believe is in the best interest of the community and the protection of property values. Seventh, we will measure progress and insist on performance from the board, the staff, the consultants, and any outside advisors. Eighth, the board is committed to a long-range continuity and succession plan. That has to take place on the shoulders of the staff because the board does come and go. We have to have a bank of knowledge that we can pass on from board to board, and we're in the process of putting that in place. Ninth, we will be looking toward the future, and we're going to try to make future boards' jobs easier. That is an important task I believe all of the board members believe in. Having staggered along with our own expertise and skills, trying to make this board work better, has made us all realize that it's part of our job to make the next board and the board after that and the board after that make their jobs easier as well. 10th and last, we will be civil, professional, and respectful, and we will expect the same in return from the membership. Thank you. Again, we're all striving toward the same goals. I think we see things differently. We all are sitting in different positions and have different perspectives, but I think if we share those perspectives, the communication will improve and people will be more involved and informed. With that, I'll turn it back to Ashley, and I thank you again for your participation.
Thank you, Alec. We'll now turn to Kurt Hagman, the current treasurer, and Jennifer Speidel, the interim accounting manager, to review the SRA financials. Kurt.
Hello there. If you don't remember voting for me, it's because you didn't vote. I was appointed, as Alex mentioned, by the board of directors on July 20th to fill out the term of Julia Green. Seems to be a little bit of over talk. Anyway, I agreed to save and serve until the end of the year, even though Julia Green, whose term I'm filling, doesn't end this year as I thought it did. I may stay on as the on the finance committee into 2021. Can you mute the rest of the people? Ah, that sounds better. Okay, next slide. All right, first the good news. There will be no homeowners' dues increase in 2021. The total assessment for a home on a lot will be $1,080 a year, billed semi-annually at $540. Condos and undeveloped lots are proportionally less. Due to new home construction, accessible units are increasing by about 0.7% in 2021 compared to 2.9% in 2019. The SRA will be looking at assessments for undeveloped tracts to make sure that they're fully paying into the association. All right, next slide. The Semi-Alva Resort Association is essentially two companies in one. Separate dues assessments flow into the operating fund and into the operating reserve fund. The operating fund is used to provide services to homeowners such as architectural review, landscaping, and day-to-day operation of the SRA, including entry gates, street lighting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Kurt, you're going to have to go back about 3 minutes and start over, and I'm going to ask all of the board members to mute themselves, the presenters to mute themselves, because we're getting some feedback, and we'll just let Kurt finish his presentation, and then you can unmute. So if you'll do that, I think it'll work out better. Kurt, if you'll just start at the top of this slide, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. The Semi-Alva Residents Association is essentially two companies in one. Separate dues assessments flow into two separate funds. One, the operating fund, and second, the restricted reserve fund. The operating fund is used to provide services to homeowners such as architectural review, landscaping, and day-to-day operation and maintenance of assets such as entry gates, paying for electricity for street lighting, roads, and wastewater systems. The restricted reserve, on the other hand, is used to fund capital projects to ensure that the major components of the infrastructure are replaced and maintained for the long-term enjoyment of residents. These fund balances essentially represent your equity in the SRA. Historically, the SRA has not segregated these funds in the banking system, but this will be done in 2021 to conform to HOA best practices. This is even more important since an accounting change was implemented in 2019 that designated the money that we collect for the restricted reserve to be a prepaid liability instead of a pure asset. We are in the process of consolidating our 10 bank accounts at 3 different banks, maybe 4 different banks now, that specialize in service to one bank, which will specialize in services to homeowners associations. This will reduce staff time to manage money flows, as well as provide higher return for our investable funds, which are very low at the moment. Next slide. This slide actually shows the operating fund balance on the left and the restricted reserve fund balance on the right, with the 2019 actual as per the audited statement, the 2020 budget, which you approved last year, the 2020 forecast, which is our best view of what 2020 is going to finish up at, then the 2020 budget that included the real estate transfer fee, which has since been reduced, and then finally the revised budget, which only takes out the real estate transfer fee and the amount we were going to pay down on the mortgage of the SRA facility. We'll talk about this later in the presentation. Next slide. Since there was a initiative on the ballot, or a resolution on the ballot this year regarding loans, I thought it would be helpful to show the members what loans we currently have. To build the SRA Center, you may recall we did have $120,000 that had been accumulating over the years in the Future Facility Fund. Of course, this was fully depleted in 2019 to get going on the new SRA Center, but we also required a line of credit, which we had at 5% interest, that was used since April 2019 as a construction loan. This loan was refinanced into the mortgage when we got it approved last year. The SRA facility loan is $750,000. We've paid down almost a year on it now. And the loan is amortized over 15 years at an interest rate of 5%, which and the collateral is the building itself. Now we come to a more controversial one, the PPP loan. This is the government sponsored loans to help with the pandemic. We received $54,800. It's a 5-year loan, but it will not last that long. The interest rate is 1% after the deferral period, but we have a substantial deferral period, and hopefully we won't have to go beyond that, because if we meet the criteria for the loan, it will be forgiven by the end of this year, hopefully. The last loan we have down there is a Kubota tractor, which we bought a few years ago, and the supplier advanced the funds, and we are paying it off over 5 years. So that's the outstanding loans we have. I should mention the line of credit is completely balanced of 0 now, and we don't expect to be using that facility anymore in the future. All right, here's the financial summary, kind of from the beginning of the year. It was a fairly unusual year because of the pandemic.
Kurt, can I for just a second to tell everybody that those red lines that they're seeing on the screen are somebody else's red lines. Those are not projected by us. So just ignore them. Thank you, Kurt.
All right. The SRA office was forced to close, and our employees were unable to come to work for several weeks in the spring. State mandates due to the pandemic prevent the SRA from collecting fines and late penalties, and also interest rates dropped to near zero on our investments. So we were somewhat impacted by this COVID-19. This prompted the board to apply for a paycheck protection loan from the government to offset expenses due to the pandemic. The current treasurer was uncomfortable with the board's decision about the loan and resigned in July. The preparation of the 2021 budget was delayed. Joint Partners LLC was hired to build a bottom-up budget for 2021 and proctor the annual general meeting, which is being held online this year due to the pandemic. I was appointed to the board in July and started work in earnest after the golf season. However, it's clear to me that there's going to be a need for ongoing accounting and financial support for the organization. The treasurer, it's a big job between the executive director and the treasurer to manage all these funds. It's $1 million budget. Next slide. All right, the 2021 budget was approved in time for the annual general meeting, but we wanted to improve the budgeting process, so consultants were hired to help us do this. Since homeowner dues increased by 30% last year, and that's actually this year in 2020, the board looked for additional resources of revenue to pay down the SRA Center mortgage and improve our staff's capability to tackle several authority issues facing the association, which we'll get into later. After seeking legal opinion on the use of a real estate transfer fee, the board included it in the 2021 budget, along with management consulting expenses and a significant pay down on the SRA mortgage. After homeowner pushback in an open forum and a second legal opinion, the board reduced the real estate buyer's fee to $250 per transaction, which will just cover our administrative expenses to register the new owner. Forecasted revenue will drop from $270,000 to $19,000. However, by this time, the 2021 voter pamphlet had already been mailed to homeowners, so you were required to vote on the original budget proposal. Paying down the mortgage has been put on hold, but the board still is committed to improving the capability of SRA staff. Efforts are underway to trim the 2021 budget in light of the reduced revenue forecast, as Alec mentioned. The other slide I wanted to put in here has to do with consulting contracts, because there was some concern about this raised in the open forum, so I thought we should have a look at all of the contracts that we have in place here. This slide shows both 2020 in column A and 2021 in column B. Total spending for Joint Partners LLC for this year will be $136,500, and next year is projected to be $140,150. This will be about $276,700, not the $400,000 that was circulating in a flyer that was delivered to some people's mailboxes prior to the election. Other significant expenses for consulting in 2021 include legal, financial audit. The board elected to do a complete financial audit this year instead of just a review. And that was based on the fact that it was a very unusual year with a lot of things happening. So it was important to make sure we have a complete accounting of what happened in 2020. I guess there is another fairly significant contract there shown as land use consultant, 17,600. This is a consultant we've hired to help sort out the issue between the neighborhood homeowners associations and the SRA and the legal responsibilities for each. Next slide. At this point, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Spittle, a CPA who works for Joint Partners LLC. She's been working with us to develop the 2021 budget and will provide additional detail on revenue and expenses next year. So over to you, Jennifer.
Jennifer muted.
There we go. Great. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. And thank you, Kurt, for the introduction. I just wanted to run over some cash flow numbers, as we know that some of the funds are not going to be available from the 0.5% transfer fee in 2021 or in 2020. And so you can see that at the top of the screen here, we have projected income from operations with the transfer fee, both the $250 and the 0.5%. And then following, we have a forecast for our ending cash in operations with the transfer fee. And so the forecasted balance was going to be at the end of 2021, $399,000, including the full 0.5% transfer fee. Now with just the $250 transfer fee, we can have an updated net income projection, which if nothing was changed, would be $146,901 loss, which would put the association at a balance of $256,943 forecasted in operations at the end of the year. Now, CAI recommends that 2 months of operating cash be held in reserve as a best practice. And so that $256,000, while lower than what is typically held by the association, is within those CAI best practice guidelines. Additionally, this cash flow does assume that the reserve mortgage loan is paid from operations, and it can be paid from reserves because it is a reserve expense, the building. Operating funds can be spent on reserves, but not the other way around. And so, as both Kurt and Alec mentioned, the board is going to be starting the process of creating a spending plan for 2021. And so this will get updated, but I just wanted to give everyone a sense of what would happen if there wasn't a spending plan, what that looked like to the association. Next slide, please. And next we have our reserve fund. And so 70 to 100% of fully funded in your reserves is considered very strong, and it's also considered not likely to have a special assessment. And so the reserve fund budget is presented here is exactly what's in your voters pamphlet. And that the beginning of the year, it's 143.65% projected for 2021. And at the end of the year, after reserve projects from the reserve study, it's at 84.85% funded. The only project that's outside of the reserve study is this SRA Center design. And whether or not those funds are spent is to be determined. The board is going to be having a strategic planning meeting and with the new board members that are elected today. And we're going to go ahead and review all of the projects that are upcoming to the association that are in the reserve study, as well as the projects that aren't in the reserve study that are new capital, such as finishing out the SRA Center, finishing out the upstairs, and any landscaping that may need to be done. And so that is going to be for future conversation and discussion for the membership to have input in. Next.
Thank you, Jennifer. We are moving on to the, oops, sorry, skip one. There you are.
Oh, great.
2020.
Great. So we had the 2019 review and balance sheet, and I apologize. I thought that would be posted on here, the actual balance sheet. However, it is included in your voters pamphlet, the 2019 reviewed balance sheet on page 7 of your voter pamphlet. And you'll note that if you are able to take a look at that balance sheet, that one of the items that's in there that's new is called a contract liabilities assessments received in advance replacement fund for $538,825. And this is a new item on the balance sheet. It's a new GAAP requirement, so a generally accepted accounting principle that was put into place. And that rule says that all of the cash that's held in reserves, and at the end of 2019, that was $538,825, is a liability to the association because the association is required to only spend that on reserves. And so that is something new. It's a GAAP requirement, and you'll see that on the balance sheet there. That's the largest change from 2018 to 2019, and we'll see that number going forward as well as on the internal financial statements. It's not a loan, it's just a required GAAP adjustment. The other large changes for the 2019 review include the adding of the building, so you'll see a large increase in property and equipment. And then there's also a large increase in accounts payable, which is just a timing issue when the bills came in versus when they're due to be paid. Otherwise, there weren't any other major changes. Thank you. Oh, it's right there. Ha. Yep. It's the next slide.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much. Thank you both her and Jennifer. Thank you for your presentations. Now we'll be moving on to the SRA status update, and that will be provided by Executive Director Debbie Smith.
Debbie,
Debbie is muted at the moment.
Debbie, you're muted. Debbie's muted. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ashley. Again, good morning, everyone. As typical in past years, I was able to greet you in person, and I miss not being able to do that today. And thank you so much for attending the meeting virtually. This has been a difficult year for everyone due to the pandemic. The SRA staff has met challenges that we never expected to deal with to the best of our abilities. As Alec outlined in his comments, it was determined that additional training for the board and the staff was necessary for the betterment of the SRA as a whole. This is a new perspective that we have never had, which is good for the staff and the community. In September, training began for the SRA staff. Weekly staff meetings are held with the admin staff, Justin Clear, Director of Maintenance Operations, joint partners, and the human resource contractor. We now are tasked with monthly goals, weekly to-do lists, and issues list. This new process has been helpful, keeping everyone on task to accomplish our goals. Joint partners will be working with Justin to develop an annual maintenance plan in 2021 that schedules work for all common areas, vehicles, and the SRA Center. This will communicate to the membership how funds are spent, along with when and where the work is scheduled. There are still many things to accomplish over the next several months, and the staff will do all they can to make the SRA successful. In closing, I'm looking forward to being a better leader of a better staff. Thank you all for your support. And Ashley, if we could go to the next slide, please. It's always nice to welcome new members to the association. And to date, we have 83 new members. So we welcome you and hope you're enjoying your new property in whatever form that may be. And so this is for lots, homes, and condominiums. And the transactions, as you can see, are up from last year and down a little from the prior year, but still a very nice number to welcome everyone. As you'll see on the slide, the majority of the new owners are in the Seasmoke and Semiahmoo Shore neighborhoods. Next, please. And then we have our escrows, the pending sales as of the 19th, and that's up substantially from last year at this time. It was 8 last year and it's 24 this year. And I'd like to thank Team Stauffer for providing the sales information. It was very helpful to me. Thank you very much. Next, please. And then we have the SRA team, and I'll just briefly introduce each member. So we'll go ahead and start with Lori Thorne. Lori joined the team in July of 2015, and we thank her for her informative SRA email news announcements, her accurate board meeting minutes, along with all the other various tasks she performs on behalf of the membership. She is a real trooper and helps in any way that she can, so we thank Lori very much for that. Next, we have Jessica Bissett, and she is the interim ASC administrator, and she joined the team last month. We appreciate her knowledge and background in ASC matters, and the SRA will be seeking a permanent ASC administrator in the coming months. Next is Ken Johns, and Ken is our construction compliance consultant, and he joined us in 2018. And Ken brings a wealth of knowledge. He's also a past ASC member, and he works closely with the staff, the owners, and contractors. So we're delighted to have Ken as a part of our team. Next, we have Justin Clear, who was promoted to Director of Maintenance Operations in 2019. Yeah, I'm sure that you have seen Justin out and about in the sweeper and the snowplow and so on. His knowledge of the Semiahmoo community is invaluable. With the help and guidance of joint partners, his management skills will continue to increase and improve in the coming months. And I sincerely thank him for his dedication to his job and the community, because he always goes above and beyond. Next, we have Mike Larson, Sean O'Connor, and Nikolai Fredericks. They are the maintenance staff that you see out and about at the gate entrances, planting flowers and so on and so forth. And their names are from left to right. And they're wearing some of their new PPE gear. And it really came in handy yesterday, as those who live in Semiahmoo know that it rained and it rained and it rained. So again, they're busy preparing the flower beds for the fall and winter planting, and we thank them for their efforts, and they will also benefit from the additional training that we'll all be receiving. Now, for those that didn't know where the maintenance staff were located previously, this is where they were, and this is where we are now. Next, please. This is an aerial shot of the SRA Center. I give the photo credit to my son, who had just got a new drone and was trying it out. So that's a very good shot of what the SRA Center looks like. And the entire SRA staff wishes to express our appreciation to the SRA membership for bringing this facility to a reality. Having this facility has greatly increased the efficiency of the maintenance staff's ability to perform the necessary tasks throughout the community. And from the admin staff, after moving 3 times in 2 years, we are most grateful to be in a permanent location. Next, if you're uncertain how to contact the staff, you can always find our contact information on our website, which is listed on the screen. And then other forms of communication, I mentioned the SRA email news. And if you have not signed up, or I should say provided your email address to the association, we urge you to do so. Email news is one of the quickest ways for us to get pertinent information out to you. And so if you have not done that, we have Lori's email address listed here. Just send her an email and say, I'd like to be added to email notifications. And we also shortened our email address, which people I think will appreciate. It's now srahoa.com. And let's see, okay. And the community courier is being sent by email. And then we encourage you to attend the board and ASC meetings. There'll be notifications of the Zoom invitation, and you can hop on and watch those meetings. And the other exciting thing is that the SRA now has a YouTube channel that you can visit, and you can review, watch the board meetings that have taken place. And so we hope that you'll enjoy that new feature. Next, please. And as typical, I close my presentation by thanking the presidents who have served in the past. There's many familiar names I'm sure you know on this list. And I thank each of them for their time and the commitment. I thank the entire board, but the president usually has the biggest task at hand. And Alec, I thank you for serving as treasurer and president over the past 2 years and the support you've provided to the SRA staff. And again, I just appreciate everyone's attendance today. And with that, we'll welcome, or Ashley, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. We're going to move on to committees and review of their reports, and I'd like to introduce Wally Greenough.
Wally, you're muted. There you
Thank
go.
you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wally Greenough. As of January, Debbie Smith stepped down as the chairperson for the ASC, and I took over with the assistance of Joel Green for a while. We had 4 new members join us in January and another 3 now in September. As far as our activities are concerned, there are a number of them, and I will just briefly highlight a few of them. We had 19 homes submitted so far, 2 of which were not accepted. They were sent back for some revisions and explanations. 8 remodels were submitted, and 3 were not accepted at first. We also had 15 landscape plans come in, 4 of which were not accepted at first. We've done a number of home inspections, final remodel inspections, and final landscape inspections, which totaled about 35. We've had 33 tree removal requests, 15 of which were approved, 9 were not approved, and 9 were approved with some modifications. In other words, leaving stumps or taking out just a few of them rather than the entire amount that was requested. We have had non-compliance letters that we've sent out due to noise. There were 8 noise infractions. Construction standards violations, we've sent out 6 of them. And unauthorized changes to property or landscape, we've sent out 13 non-compliance letters to do with those. Also, we are in the midst of putting up some boards that show suggested house colors. They're not the be all and end all, but they are suggested house colors to give people more guidance on what we mean by muted earth tones. We're in the process of digitizing all of the files for all of the lots in Semiahmoo, so that when somebody comes in and buys a house or a lot, they can go in and see the history of that lot. We've been changing the standards for residential construction. We've added emergency antenna wording, solar panel wording. We've asked that 3D renderings be submitted with new house plans because not everyone can visualize what a house looks like from just the house plan. We've added wording to keep dust down during construction. We've added time limits for management of construction. We are also requesting pre-design meetings. Before someone actually submits a lot, we would like to, or submits a house plan, we would like to meet with them out on the lot, look at the trees and see how many of those trees that we can actually save before the owners and the architect commit themselves. We are also looking at some new submissions that are requesting metal roofing, and those are done on a case-by-case basis. So as you can see, we've been busy and we have more improvements to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Wally.
Thank you, Wally. Moving on to the SRA Communications Committee, I'd like to introduce David Ulitz.
we've had this committee in place for about 15 or 16 months. I have put in front of you the members who have served on that committee. Some have come, some have gone. They've all contributed strongly to the committee. Move to the next slide, please. We've been meeting monthly, although lately with the issues around the annual general meeting and some of the budget questions, we've been meeting on an almost weekly basis. Some of our accomplishments during the year include a new name for the organization. This was discussed over the last year and a half, and we now have officially gotten approval to use the Semiahmoo Residents Association name to describe our community and to differentiate us from the hotel. We put in place a new logo and brand. That logo and brand was in fact presented in a survey to all owners for their advice and opinion on that. Thank you for those that did input on it. There have been improvements to the website, still many more to be done. And I think the work we've done over the last couple of months to really flesh out the website are quite significant, and will make it easier for people to gather the information they require. The searchable CC&Rs, we have in the past had formats that weren't searchable, which makes it extremely difficult to find things in the CC&Rs. Now you can search by word, and given the length of the document, that greatly simplifies any research you want to do about what's going on. We've been involved in updates to the community around the pandemic. Initially, the issues were around landscaping, what was or wasn't allowed. I already mentioned the AGM. We put out we reviewed and put out a communique on neighborhood homeowners associations, including a background on the governance structure of the SRA and where NHOAs fit in. We also did a document that's available that does an overview of all of the CC&Rs and some of the issues around those. The land use consultant that's underway, that's working right now, will in fact flesh that out and make it much easier for any owner to understand the plat and the CC&Rs. In the past, those documents were almost impossible to read. They were either so tiny. He's now converting those into Word documents so they're legible and easy to access. I should mention the open forums. Board of Directors meetings. This was one of the objectives of the Communications Committee. But about a year ago, we re-advertised the fact that every Board of Directors meeting is open, and individuals can participate at the beginning of those meetings, and there's guidelines for that, which for those of you that have participated in the last few special meetings, you've had an introduction to. Plans for the future. Again, I mentioned improvements to the website, easier to navigate, we hope. Faster access to recordings and minutes. I think that's been mentioned by some other ones. We're considering a new look for the Community Courier. That was in the consultant's report. If you want some background on that, you can find the consultant's report on the website. That's not a given. The Communications Committee intends to meet further on that and discuss the implications. When we first got going, we also talked about the idea of bulletin boards at the gates. The fact is that email is an inefficient form of communications. It doesn't necessarily leap out at everyone. Most homeowners associations have some form of visual gate announcements, and we are going to move to do that. I've always commented that if you really want to know what everybody in the community is aware of, it's when a cat's gone missing, and you put the notices on the gates. Everybody knows about the cat. We need to make all of the information about the SRA as visible as that of our missing cats. One other thing I will mention just in terms of access to information, while we have a very high sign-up rate by household for receiving email communications, what we've frequently discovered is that there may only be one email address per household, And sorry to say, not all husband and or wife or partner shares that information with the other partner. So we would ask you to verify whether both or all of the residents in a house are receiving the email news. And if it's only one, you might very well want to go to Lori and ask that each individual be on the distribution list. Next slide.
Oh, I think that's all I have for you, David.
Okay, that's enough.
Thank you so much, David. We're going to move on now to the Environment Committee, which is chaired by Jennifer Plombon. Jennifer?
Unmute yourself, Jennifer.
She can't believe Lori has to unmute her.
I think Lori might have to unmute you. There you go.
There we go. Excellent. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to this meeting, which is not as much fun when we can't sit and drink coffee together while we're having it. I would like to thank the volunteers on my environmental committee. Julia, Mary Margaret Liu, and David Liu was also on the committee. Stan Monks, Bill McNally, David Stewart, and Sarah Eulis. Mary Margaret and David have left the committee, but I specifically want to thank David Liu for all the work he did to create an environmental committee website, which is full of useful information and can be accessed by going to the regular SRA website. I also want to thank David Stewart for his constant concern for our land, our trees, our other plants, and our animals. Next slide, please. So the purpose, the 5 R's that we are focusing on in the Environmental Committee are refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. To that end, I've listed some of our accomplishments and how they fit into the 5 R's. We are going to put out a survey to see if people are interested in allowing garage sales within the gates or garage sales that would be held at the office in the parking lot. So when you get that survey, please, please, please express your opinion. We are looking at how we can switch some of our yard equipment from gas-powered to electric to reduce the noise and the pollution that comes from those gas-powered yard implements, especially the leaf blowers. We're in the midst of preparing an article on how to protect the water in our harbor, in the groundwater, and in our yards and ponds, because when water goes down your drain or your toilet or your tub from within your house, you might not know where it actually goes. So I think that would be useful to know. We are publishing in the upcoming Community Courier an article on climate change and its effects on Semiahmoo and what we can do to mitigate it. Stan Monks is working with the SRA board and the ASC to create a tree planting initiative to plant memorial trees, that are in memory of someone or some animal. And we would like to have that in place soon. People can plant trees in places that are lacking them right now. We also have someone who is monitoring the City of Blaine Council and planning meetings for environmental concerns. This ties in with what Bill McNally is doing at looking at what goes on along the parkway. We always want new members, so if you are interested in the environment of Semiahmoo and have some ideas and some things you'd like to have us do, please contact Lori and she will contact me. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. To note here, community volunteers, Finance Committee will be reestablished in 2021. If you are interested, please contact Debbie at srahoa.com. Next, we have our Governance Committee, which is chaired by Michael Hayden. Michael.
Mike, you're on mute. So we have to unmute you.
Okay.
There you go, Mike, you're on.
I'm Mike Hayden. Am I getting it? Sylvia, can you unmute yourself? Mute yourself.
I am muted.
for some reason I'm getting am I getting a feedback with everyone?
Yes, you are.
How's that?
Okay, is that better? No. I'm going to turn yours off, Sylvia.
I did.
Hello? Okay, is that better? Yeah, okay. Yes, the governance committee is, the governance committee's had a number of meetings. One of the things that, am I getting feedback with everybody else?
Yes, you're getting feedback.
Yeah.
Just say
Sylvia's turning off her computer.
There.
Okay, all right. We've had a number of meetings, and through the course of our meetings, we've determined that the CC&Rs need some revision, particularly revision as relates to compliance with SRA requirements and the requirements of the Architectural Standards Committee. We, after a review of those CC&Rs and a revision of the CC&Rs, it was determined that we would not present a full CC&R revision to the annual meeting at this time because of everything else that was on the plate for the membership. Sylvia? I'm trying. We've also determined that and have been working on the issue of the NHOAs, the statute, the newer statute, RCW.
Nobody cares.
Anyway, the new statute provides that the sub-HOAs are required to elect after a period of time a board for the units. Many of our NHOAs have not done that. And that's in process to try to get a good structure between the NHOAs and the SRA and have good working documents that govern those relationships. And the governance, let me see. You can read the rest of the